Chapter 17 Lady O'Hara Wins Her Point Part 2 of Black Moth by Georgette Heyer Read for LibriVox.org into the public domain. She laughed. "Seriously, Jack, could you not settle down near here?" "Not with that old woman, Molly." "Never mind her. Won't you consider it? No one need know you. In fact, you need see no one, and oh, Jack, don't look like that. Miles, is he not ridiculous?" "Sure, Alanna, 'tis a dreary life he'd be leading," chuckled O'Hara. "I see what it is, Molly. You have planned to make me a recluse, and to marry me to my housekeeper. I protest, 'tis great ill usage." Molly eyed him doubtfully. "Would you object much to the life, John?" "Madam," replied John solemnly, "you would find my corpse in the garden at the end of the first week." "Of course I should not like that," she pondered, "but I do not see what else we can do for you. Oh, and that reminds me, I drove over to Littledean yesterday. Miles, my love, will you be so kind as to fetch me my hat? I protest, the sun—" "We will move more into the shade," said her disobliging husband. "Oh, well, 'tis of no account, though I did hear that Brown was wanting to speak to you about the new cob. 'Tis prodigious thoughtful of you, Molly, but I met Brown some time ago." Lady O'Hara gave it up. "Well, as I was saying, Jack, I went to call at Horton House. Dear me, what a beautiful girl Diana is, to be sure!" Carstairs tried to think of something to say, and failing, made a non-committal sound. "Yes, they both sent their kind wishes and hoped you were better. Goodness, 'tis very close here. I wonder if you will give me your arm round the garden, and would you fetch me my hat? I left it in the hall, I think. Thank you very much." She waited until he was out of earshot before she turned to her husband. "Now, Miles, you must please to stay where you are. I am not going to do anything indiscreet." "Molly, I can't have you worry him. No such thing. I am going to coax him to stay here instead of going abroad. I feel sure that if we can but persuade him to stay, something will happen." "What will happen?" "Something." "How do you know?" "I don't know. I only feel it." "Very well, Asthore. If you can tease Jack into staying, I'll bless you." "That will be most enjoyable, I make no doubt," she answered, and stepped back out of reach. "Oh, thank you, John!" She tied the hat over her curls, and placed her hand on my lord's arm. "Lazy Miles is going to sleep again," she said, "and I so dislike to hear him snore, so let's go a long way away into the rose garden." "Don't go so far as all that," drawled Miles, closing his eyes. "You will tire yourselves." "Do you allow him to make these ribald remarks?" inquired Jack, waiting for her to extricate a stone from her shoe. "Not usually," she answered. "He takes advantage when you are here." She dropped the pebble on top of O'Hara, and strolled away with my lord. As soon as they had rounded a corner in the shrubbery, she commenced the attack. "I want to speak to you of Miles," she confided. "He is so worried." "Is he, Molly? Faith, I hadn't noticed it." She reflected that neither had she, but continued, nothing daunted, "Ah, but he is." "What worries him?" "You," said the lady, mournfully. "'Tis the thought of your leaving us. I feel it myself." "Why?" "He had hoped you would be with us for a long time, as I had." "'Tis monstrous good of you both, but I am sure I do not know what I shall do with Miles when you are gone. He was so looking forward to having you with him." "Molly!" "And indeed it has come as a great disappointment to both of us to hear you talk of leaving. Won't you think better of it?" "Molly, you overwhelm me. How can I remain here indefinitely?" "If only you would. You don't know how happy it would make us. I declare Miles will worry himself quite ill if you persist in being so unkind." "Oh, Molly, you rogue!" She could not repress a smile, but checked it almost at once. "I mean it, Jack." "What, that Miles is worrying himself ill over me? Fie!" "Perhaps not as bad as that," she admitted, "but indeed he is much perturbed, and oh, I wish that you would not make us so unhappy." She dabbed at her eyes with a wispy handkerchief, but managed to watch his face all the same. "David loves you so, the pet, and Miles is so delighted to have found you again, and I like you, and I think 'twill be indeed rude and horrid if you do go, besides being so silly." "Do you, Molly? You make me feel I should be an ungrateful boor to refuse." The handkerchief was whisked away. "Then of course you won't try to refuse. You'll stay? Promise?" "I cannot thank you enough." "Oh, thank you, Jack, till the autumn. Promise?" "Molly, I really—" "Promise! I shall cry if you do not." "I cannot. How can I prey upon your hospitality for so—" "What rubbish, Jack! As if Miles had not spent months and months at Wincham when you were boys. That was different. When you were boys, and now you are so proud that you refuse to stay 3 miserable little months with us. No, no, Molly, indeed, 'tis not that. Confess, if Miles were a bachelor, you would not hesitate." He was silent, nonplussed. "You see, and just because he has a wife you are disagreeable and proud. You feel you cannot bear to stay with me." "I swear I do not." "Then why do you refuse?" she triumphed. "Molly, really, I—" He broke off laughing. "You little wretch, you leave me nothing to say." "Then you will stay, as I ask?" "You are quite sure?" "Quite." "Thank you very much. I will stay. 'Tis monstrous good of you, I vow. When you are tired of me, say so." "I will," she promised. "Oh, but we shall do famously! How pleased Miles will be! By the way," she continued airily, "I asked the Miss Bowleys to honour us on Wednesday, but unfortunately they could not. Still, perhaps some other She stopped, a little frightened, for he was standing before her gripping her shoulders in a very elder brother fashion. "Listen to me, Molly. I know that you have discovered that I love Diana, and I know that you think to be very kind to bring us together; but I tell you that 'twill not be kind at all, only very cruel to us both. If you worry her to come here, I must go. Do you see?" Molly looked into the stern eyes, and her lip trembled. "I'm very sorry," she faltered. Jack drew her arm through his once more. "'Tis nothing to be sorry about, and indeed I am very grateful to you for trying to make me happy. But please do not." "No, I promise I will not. But do you think you are being quite fair to—" "Molly, tell me this. Do you think you are being quite good to disobey your husband?" The blue eyes were dancing. She smiled doubtfully. "What do you mean, Jack?" "Do you tell me that Miles did not expressly forbid you to mention this subject to me?" She pulled her hand away, her mouth forming a soundless "Oh!" "Well, well, well, how horrid of you!" she cried, and shook her fist at him. "I'm going now." Later, she found her husband in the library, and ran into his arms. "Do you mind holding me tightly?" she asked. "I've been put in the corner." "What?" O'Hara drew her on to his knee. "Yes, figuratively, by Jack. I think, perhaps, I shouldn't like to marry him, after all." "What has he done?" "Nothing, I'm afraid," polishing one of his buttons with an assiduous finger. "I'm afraid it was rather my own fault." "Oh!" "Yes, but I only said very little about the Miss Bowleys, and he suddenly turned into an iceberg, and made me feel so like a naughty little girl. But he is going to stay, all the same, so kiss me, Miles." Chapter 17 Read by Sibylla Denton. For more free audiobooks or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org.